Ethan had always been known for his natural intelligence and creativity. Growing up, he was the kid who could solve complex math problems without much effort or write beautifully crafted essays in a matter of hours. Teachers often praised him and friends admired his abilities. But despite his talents, Ethan found himself stuck in a cycle that he couldn't break: procrastination and laziness. His days would start with good intentions. He would wake up early, thinking today would be different. Today, he would get things done. But soon enough, distractions crept in. His phone buzzed with notifications, his mind wandered to unrelated thoughts, or he simply found himself lying in bed longer than he should have. The clock would tick away, and before he knew it, hours had passed, leaving him with nothing to show for it. There were important tasks he needed to complete, such as working on a book he always dreamed of writing, exercising to stay healthy, and pursuing opportunities to advance his career. But every time he sat down to work, the task felt overwhelming and his mind would start looking for reasons to avoid it. A small part of him knew he was capable of achieving great things, yet laziness seemed to block his path at every turn. He often rationalized his procrastination. "I'll start tomorrow," he would say to himself, convincing his mind that he needed to rest today so he could be more productive tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. When the next day arrived, the same pattern repeated itself, putting things off, finding excuses, and telling himself that there would always be more time to accomplish his goals. Ethan's lack of action wasn't because he lacked ambition or passion. In fact, he often daydreamed about success, about finishing his book, getting into great shape, and climbing the ranks in his career. However, the gap between his aspirations and the reality of his daily actions was vast. The more he ignored his responsibilities, the more guilty and frustrated he became, yet that guilt didn't seem to drive him to change. In a way, he had become numb to it, used to the cycle of inaction. As a result, Ethan felt unfulfilled. He spent his days in a haze of half-hearted attempts and missed opportunities. Deep down, he knew that his laziness wasn't just about being tired or needing a break. It was about fear and avoidance. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, and the avoidance of the discomfort that came with working hard. The paradox was clear. His laziness was holding him back from the very things he wanted most, and he could no longer ignore the fact that he was wasting his potential. Ethan was caught in a dangerous loop. The longer he delayed, the harder it became to take the first step. But the more he avoided taking action, the more his dreams seemed to slip further out of reach. This expansion delves deeper into the internal struggle that Ethan faces, acknowledging his talents but being unable to overcome the pull of procrastination. It paints a more vivid picture of his feelings of guilt, frustration, and the vicious cycle of inaction that many people experience when they fail to break free from laziness. Certainly, here's an expanded version of the point. The catalyst for change: Ethan meets an old man in the park who recognizes his potential and speaks to him about his laziness. One afternoon, as Ethan sat in the park, feeling weighed down by his own frustration, he took a rare moment to reflect on his life. The weight of missed opportunities, unfinished projects, and unfulfilled dreams was starting to feel unbearable. He couldn't help but wonder how much longer he could live like this, drifting through his days, squandering the potential he knew he had but couldn't seem to tap into. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the path, and the park was unusually quiet for a weekday afternoon. Ethan leaned back on the bench, hoping the fresh air would clear his mind. Just as he closed his eyes and tried to push away the thoughts of his own inadequacies, he heard a soft voice from beside him. Looking troubled, young man." Ethan opened his eyes to see an elderly man sitting next to him on the bench, his weathered face lined with age, but still carrying a sense of wisdom and calm. The man had a gentle smile, his eyes filled with something that Ethan couldn't immediately place, perhaps understanding or concern, or maybe both. Ethan gave a half-hearted smile back. "Just thinking, I guess," he replied, unsure why he felt the need to explain himself to a stranger. The old man's eyes seemed to pierce through Ethan as if he could see right into his soul. There was a stillness about him, a sense that he had lived long enough to understand the struggles of life and human nature. "You seem like someone who has big dreams," the old man said, his voice soft yet firm. "But something is holding you back. I've seen it many times before." Ethan felt a pang of vulnerability in his chest. It was as if the stranger had just read his mind. He didn't know why, but he felt an urge to share more with the man. "I do have dreams," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper, "but every time I try to chase them, I just can't seem to make any progress. I don't know what's wrong with me. I have all the talent, but I can't shake this feeling of laziness. It's like I'm trapped in my own head, telling myself I'll do things tomorrow, but then tomorrow never comes." The old man nodded knowingly. The struggle with procrastination, a common enemy, but you must understand one thing, young man. You are not lazy. You are simply avoiding the discomfort that comes with growth. Laziness isn't about the lack of ability. It's about avoiding the effort needed to create change. And Ethan blinked, surprised by the man's words. Avoiding discomfort, he repeated, not quite understanding. Exactly, the old man said, his eyes gleaming with understanding. You see, every time you avoid doing something, it feels comfortable in the moment, doesn't it? Watching TV or scrolling through your phone might give you temporary relief, but the longer you put off what matters, the more painful it becomes. And not just in the practical sense, there's an emotional cost to putting off your dreams. Ethan's mind raced as the man's words sunk in. For the first time, he realized that his laziness was more than just a lack of willpower. It was a defense mechanism, a way of avoiding the discomfort and uncertainty that came with pursuing his goals. But deep inside, he knew that avoiding his dreams was causing a deeper pain, a sense of regret and frustration that he couldn't ignore any longer. The old man continued. You have what it takes, Ethan. I can see it in your eyes, the potential, the passion, the creativity. Those are all gifts you've been given, but to unlock them, you must take action, even when you don't feel like it. The first step is the hardest, but it's the only way to break free from this cycle of laziness. Ethan was silent for a long time, the old man's words echoing in his mind. He had heard motivational speeches and read self-help books, but something about this simple exchange, sitting with this wise old stranger, shifted something inside him. It felt like a pivotal moment, like a key had just been turned in a lock he didn't even realize was there. The old man smiled at him, his expression almost as if he had known this moment would come. Remember, Ethan, he said as he stood up to leave, greatness is not found in the perfect moment. It's found in the moments you choose to take action, no matter how small. Stop waiting for motivation to strike. Make it happen by doing, not by thinking or waiting. Ethan nodded, his heart racing with a new sense of purpose. As the old man walked away, Ethan remained sitting on the bench, deep in thought. The weight that had been suffocating him began to lift, and in its place, a glimmer of hope and determination started to grow. For the first time in years, Ethan knew exactly what he had to do. Stop waiting, stop avoiding, and start taking action. This expanded version adds more depth to the pivotal moment when Ethan meets the old man in the park. The conversation helps Ethan realize that his laziness is rooted in fear and avoidance, not a lack of ability. The old man's wisdom serves as a catalyst for Ethan's decision to break free from his cycle of procrastination and finally take action toward his dreams. The meeting with the old man is the turning point, the moment that sparks the change in Ethan's mindset. Certainly. Here's an expanded version of the point. The story of the lion. The old man shares a story about a lazy lion who wasted its potential, but learned the value of hard work. The old man paused for a moment as if letting his words settle in before continuing. Ethan, still reeling from the conversation, leaned in, eager to hear more. The old man's voice softened and a knowing smile spread across his face. Let me tell you the story of a lion, he said, his tone warm and deliberate. Not just any lion, but one with untapped greatness. Ethan's curiosity piqued and he sat up a little straighter, listening intently as the old man began. The lazy lion, once upon a time in the vast expanse of the African savanna, there was a lion who was unlike any other. He was born strong, with a magnificent golden mane that shimmered under the sun and eyes that gleamed with intelligence. All the other animals recognized his potential, and even the other lions in his pride acknowledged his future as their leader. But this lion, despite his natural gifts, had a problem. He was lazy. The old man paused for a moment, his eyes distant, as if recalling the tale from his own memories. You see, the lion's strength was a gift. His body was built for greatness. Powerful muscles, sharp claws, and an unchallenged roar that could send shivers through the entire savannah. But despite all this, he was not interested in putting in the work required to hone his abilities. Every day he lounged in the sun, letting the warmth of the day lull him into a peaceful slumber. He preferred to rest rather than hunt for food. And when the other lions ventured out to improve their skills or protect the pride, he stayed behind. Ethan's eyebrows furrowed. It sounded like the lion had everything, strength, skill, potential, and yet it wasn't using any of it. The story seemed all too familiar, wasted potential. The old man continued, his voice heavy with a hint of sadness. The lion's laziness grew over the years. He did not struggle for food. It came easily. He relied on the efforts of the other lions, waiting for them to bring food to him, and he would eat without a second thought. He basked in the admiration of the other animals, but deep down, the other lions began to lose respect for him. They saw the lion's true nature, not as a leader, but as one who wasted his potential. The lion was not growing stronger, not honing his skills, and not becoming the leader he was meant to be. He was stagnant. Ethan could feel the weight of the lion's laziness. It wasn't just about not doing anything. It was about the lost opportunities, the erosion of respect, and the diminishing sense of self-worth that came from neglecting what one was capable of. The storm, the old man's voice shifted, taking on a more serious tone. And one day, a great storm swept across the savannah. The skies darkened and the winds howled with fury. The lion's favorite resting place, a secluded spot by the river, was torn apart by the storm. Trees were uprooted, and the soft, comfortable ground he had grown accustomed to was now a tangle of branches and mud. The storm raged on for days, and when it finally passed, the lion found himself forced to leave his safe spot and wander into new territories. For the first time in his life, he had no choice but to adapt. A new territory, the lion, now homeless and with no place to rest, wandered through unfamiliar lands. His muscles had grown weak from years of inaction. He had avoided the hard work of hunting, training, and developing his skills. And now he found himself out of shape and struggling to survive. He could no longer rely on others. The pride he once led had moved on without him, and his once easy life had come to an end. The old man's voice grew quieter as he continued. The lion was faced with a harsh reality. Either he would continue in his state of laziness and perish, or he would rise to the occasion and change. Slowly, painfully, the lion made a choice. He began to train. Each day, he pushed himself harder than before. He started hunting on his own, learning the art of patience and perseverance. He exercised his muscles, built up his stamina, and honed his instincts. Though it was difficult at first, and each step felt like a challenge, the lion found strength he never knew he had. The lion's transformation, the old man smiled at Ethan. It wasn't easy. Every day the lion had to confront the temptation to rest, to take the easy route. But slowly he transformed. His once weak muscles grew strong again. His hunting skills improved. His mane began to shine as brightly as it had when he was a cub. Eventually the lion became not only the strongest in his new territory, but the most respected of all the animals. And more importantly, he became the leader he was always meant to be. Because he understood now that greatness is earned, not given. It requires consistent effort, resilience, and the willingness to confront discomfort. Ethan sat in silence, absorbing the old man's words. The story of the lion hit him hard. It was a story about wasted potential, about the danger of taking things for granted and relying too much on natural abilities without putting in the work. The lion's journey was a metaphor for Ethan's own life. He had been blessed with so much talent and potential, but he had been too lazy to put in the effort to truly grow and evolve. The lesson, the old man finished the story with one final piece of wisdom. You see, Ethan, you are not unlike that lion. You've been given the gifts, the abilities, and the potential to do great things, but without effort, without hard work, those gifts will go to waste. The lion's transformation came when he realized that the easy way would only lead to his downfall. It was the discomfort of pushing himself, of doing things he didn't want to do, that eventually made him into the powerful leader he was meant to be. Ethan nodded slowly, feeling a sense of clarity he hadn't felt before. The old man had given him a mirror into his own life, showing him the danger of laziness and the transformative power of hard work. Ethan knew now that the change he needed to make wasn't just about setting goals, it was about committing to consistent action, even when it was hard. The old man stood to leave, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Remember," he said with a knowing smile, "you are the lion now, but only you can choose whether you will waste your potential or rise to greatness." This expanded version delves deeper into the story of the lion, drawing a direct parallel to Ethan's own life. It highlights the gradual downfall of the lion due to laziness and how through hard work and persistence, the lion transforms into the leader he was always meant to be. The story not only serves as a cautionary tale, but also as a powerful example of the importance of taking responsibility for one's potential and the value of putting in the effort to achieve greatness. Certainly. Here's an expanded version of the point, the lesson of the lion. The lion's journey shows that success comes not from waiting for opportunities, but by working hard and building strength. As the old man finished telling Ethan the story of the lazy lion and its eventual transformation, a profound silence hung between them. The message was clear, but the depth of its meaning was still sinking in for Ethan. The old man watched him thoughtfully, knowing that sometimes it takes a moment of quiet reflection for someone to truly understand the lessons they've been given. The lion's journey, as described by the old man, was more than just a story of a wild animal. It was a universal lesson about the nature of success and the effort required to achieve it. For Ethan, it felt like a turning point, waiting for opportunities. The old man leaned in slightly, as if emphasizing the importance of what he was about to say. You see, Ethan, the lion didn't become great by waiting for the perfect moment. For years, he waited for his dreams to come to him. He basked in the comfort of what he had, never seeking out growth or improvement. He thought that his strength, his natural abilities, would be enough. He thought that opportunities would come to him, perhaps that others would take care of the hard work for him. Ethan nodded, understanding the parallel the old man was drawing between the lion's behavior and his own. How often had he thought that he would somehow find motivation or inspiration at the right time? That opportunities would magically appear and he would simply have to seize them? Like the lion, he had assumed that his talent and intelligence would be enough to carry him forward without realizing that success requires more than just waiting or relying on what one already has. The old man continued, but the reality is that success doesn't just come to you, it requires active effort. It requires a mindset of constant improvement and action. The lion learned this only when he was forced to leave his comfortable resting place and confront the challenges of survival. In those moments, he realized that he couldn't wait any longer for the world to hand him success. He had to go out and work for it. The importance of hard work, Ethan's mind started to clear. He had often struggled with starting projects, thinking that inspiration would strike or that he would feel more motivated to tackle his goals someday. The truth was that someday had never come. He'd waited, procrastinated, and hoped that things would change without putting in the necessary effort. The old man smiled, sensing that Ethan was beginning to understand. The lion's transformation came when he stopped waiting for the world to give him what he wanted and instead started working for it. He didn't wait for the perfect opportunity to present itself. He didn't wait until everything was aligned perfectly. No, he took action, despite the discomfort, despite the challenge. The process of hunting, training, and strengthening himself wasn't easy, but it was in the doing, the daily effort, that he found the power to transform his life. Ethan's thoughts shifted. This idea of doing rather than waiting felt like a revelation. He had always looked for signs or for the right moment to act. But the more the old man spoke, the more Ethan realized that the right moment didn't exist unless he created it through consistent action. Hard work wasn't just about pushing through the discomfort. It was the very thing that would unlock his potential and lead him to the success he had been dreaming about. Building strength through consistency. The old man's voice softened as he spoke more deeply about the lion's journey. The lion's strength didn't appear overnight. It wasn't built in one moment of inspiration or a single act of bravery. No, it was through daily discipline, through pushing past the urge to rest, and through choosing hard work again and again. Every day, the lion trained his body, sharpened his instincts, and built his resilience. Each small step of effort added to his strength. Ethan could feel the weight of this truth. The idea that success wasn't about waiting for a breakthrough moment, but about building something over time resonated with him. The lion's success came from the accumulation of small, consistent actions, training his body, hunting for food, improving his strategy, learning from mistakes. Each action, no matter how small, contributed to his growth and eventually his transformation into the powerful leader he had been destined to become. I've been waiting for things to change without realizing that it's the work I do today that will shape my future, Ethan thought to himself, a quiet sense of clarity washing over him. It's not the big moments that lead to success, but the daily choices, the small, consistent efforts, the power of action. The old man leaned forward slightly, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. Ethan, the lion, could have remained in his comfort zone, avoiding work and letting the world pass him by, but he didn't. And that's the key. It's not just about having the right opportunities. It's about creating those opportunities through action. Every step the lion took, no matter how difficult, brought him closer to the greatness he was destined for. The lion's story was a powerful reminder that success was not reserved for the lucky or the naturally gifted. It was for those who were willing to do the hard work, even when it felt uncomfortable or inconvenient. Success was built on a foundation of discipline, persistence, and effort. The lion's journey was a metaphor for anyone who wanted to achieve greatness. The road wasn't easy, but it was the only road that led to true fulfillment and achievement. Remember this, the old man said with a knowing look. You are like the lion. You have the potential to be great, but that potential will remain dormant unless you choose to act. Don't wait for things to be perfect or for opportunities to fall into your lap. Create your own opportunities by doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. Success doesn't come from waiting. It comes from building strength one step at a time. The awakening Ethan sat quietly for a moment, processing the powerful lesson the old man had shared. It was clear now, if he wanted to make his dreams a reality, he could no longer afford to sit on the sidelines. Just like the lion, he had to take action. He had to put in the work, even when it felt uncomfortable, even when he didn't feel motivated. The daily effort would add up. The consistent steps, the small victories, and the moments of struggle would ultimately lead him to the success he was capable of achieving. With a deep breath, Ethan stood up, feeling a surge of determination fill him. The lion's lesson had sparked something within him, something he couldn't ignore any longer. He didn't need to wait for the perfect moment or the ideal circumstances. He already had everything he needed to succeed. All he had to do was start. This expanded version emphasizes the lesson the lion's journey offers. Success comes from actively pursuing it, not by waiting for things to happen. The lion's hard work, consistency, and decision to stop relying on comfort are presented as key elements of success. The focus is on building strength through consistent effort, creating opportunities through action, and understanding that success is a process, not a one-time event. This idea directly applies to Ethan's situation, encouraging him to take action rather than wait for a perfect moment. Certainly. Here's a conclusion that ties everything together. Conclusion. As the old man's wisdom settled deep within Ethan, he realized that the path to success was not a straight line, nor was it paved with shortcuts. It was a journey of perseverance, discipline, and consistent effort. The lion's story was more than just a tale of wasted potential. It was a powerful reminder that greatness is not a gift bestowed upon a lucky few. Rather, it is something that must be earned through hard work and determination. Ethan's laziness, his procrastination, and his tendency to wait for inspiration had been his greatest obstacles. But now, armed with the clarity of the lion's lesson, he understood that he couldn't wait any longer for motivation or the perfect moment. His potential was not something to be taken for granted. It was something to be nurtured through action. The lion had realized this too late, but Ethan still had time to change, to take control of his future. With a new sense of purpose, Ethan began to take the first steps. Each day, he committed himself to building his strength physically, mentally, and emotionally. He embraced the discomfort of growth and chose the path of hard work, even when it was difficult. Slowly, he began to see the transformation within himself. His confidence grew as he chipped away at the procrastination that had once held him back. And just like the lion, Ethan found that the more effort he invested, the stronger he became. And the more opportunities began to appear. The road ahead was still long, but Ethan no longer feared the effort it would take. The lessons from the lion had awakened something inside him, a recognition that success was not an accident, but the result of continuous action, small victories, and the courage to face challenges head on. He knew now that the key to a fulfilling life wasn't waiting for the right moment. It was creating that moment through his own efforts. And so, with the lion's story as his guide, Ethan embraced the journey. No longer would he be held back by laziness or fear of failure. He understood now that the path to greatness was forged by the choices he made every single day, and he was ready to walk that path with purpose, strength, and unwavering determination.